to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Tracy Shirk, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome. Today we are talking about culture and the culture that we create inside of our organizations. And I have to tell you, as we talk about culture, guess what? We create the culture by our behaviors and the energy that we bring to the office, to the Zoom room, to the whatever it is you are doing every single day. And we have an amazing guest with us. And so with us today is Lisa Even. And Lisa is all about having good ripple effect. So what greater way to tie in the culture with the ripple effect that we create? Lisa, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this conversation. I love Tracy. And every time we talk, I feel like we have such colorful and fruitful, and I have notes upon notes. So it's exciting to be here.
Yeah. So Lisa talks about notes upon notes. Lisa introduced me to the Remarkable. Let me tell you how that changed our environment. Let's talk about culture for a second and getting rid of paper and actually saving time. The Remarkable is amazing. Okay, I digress.
Right? We could do an infomercial for that real quick, but for another day.
Yes, absolutely. So here's the deal. When you think of culture, what does that mean to you?
Oh, I love it. So before I owned my own business, I had a team of 65. And the way that I would introduce culture to them as soon as they arrived is I would cup my hands together. And so I would be like holding water in them almost. And I would say, do you see us? We're in there. And they look at me like, I think she's gone crazy. And I'm like, no, this is our ecosystem to build, maintain, and protect. It's our job to keep these waters clean. I always say to the people that are panel interviewing potential applicants, do not let someone into our work family that's going to pollute our waters. They need to have good ripple effect. And that's truly how I would introduce them to this idea of almost the togetherness that we create, that they have so much power and control in keeping our environment clean and healthy and safe and all the things that you think about when you truly think about trees, water, and wind, but more from a corporate culture perspective. I think some of the folks that had been there for a long time, it was a new idea when I came. But by the end, it took about 3 years. And then I would hear them saying, well, that's not good ripple effect. And I'm like, yes, now I know our language is matching the culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was looking at something on LinkedIn the other day, and there was a post specifically about, I think it was in Indiana, but it was a medical center that said, you're responsible for the energy and your behaviors that you bring into this environment. And if it is not positive or moving something forward, it is not welcome here. Essentially saying, look, we have a very specific environment that we are creating, and we are here to serve you and to be healthy and to create healthy lives. Guess what? We can't do that if you don't bring that in and the want to do that, right?
Oh, absolutely. My favorite thing is if you've ever seen the circle of control, a lot of us have, right? If you Google it, it's an amazing visual. I would put that in front of them and I would say, do you know how much power you have? You have all the power. You get to decide how you show up on this team. And I am here to help you shine. And I encourage you to think about what your legacy is in our environment. And oftentimes people were able to connect their daily, their daily activities to their own, I'm in control. And I think for so long, employees have felt like, oh, the boss decides, or oh, the company that. And I'm like, no, it's all about you. And I think giving them that permission back is huge when it comes to culture, because then all of a sudden they feel seen, heard, and needed. I mean, who doesn't want that?
Yeah, for sure. And if you listened to our podcast last week, you heard Jamie and I talk about the hand that we give all of our new employees and our clients that come in, meaning, hey, your hand is always in it, right?
Yes.
And how aligned that is with our culture. And, so it's as we create that, what are those things that you do to instill culture? Because what is culture, right? Culture is those behaviors that you allow and don't allow inside your organization.
It's so true. And I think too, I do a lot of sessions with teams around culture. And one of the first things we talk about is how it can be generational, where things are passed from previous to current to future, and thinking about how we want that to trickle down because we want the good things to stay and we want to be able to see it, but we also want to take a big time out and say, is that something we want to allow? One of the examples I often give is when I first took over a team, I would realize we were really great with our clients, but not with each other.
Yeah.
And so we really sat down and did some team statements around never too busy to be friendly. I'm like, we take amazing care of the people we serve. I was in healthcare, but we don't take care of each other. Is that what we want in our culture? And the team actually got to vote. And thank God they voted for that. We don't want to be too busy. But it did allow us to then have a fence post that when sometimes maybe we did get a little bit busy and we did get a little bit cranky, we were able to remind each other and say like, hey, right, never too busy to be friendly. And that person had permission again to create the world that they wanted, right? Like, what do you want your landscape to look like? We spend a lot of time at work.
Right. I love what you just did here is you created the ability to give individuals permission. That is so important because so often as leaders inside the organization, I don't think it's intentional, but sometimes it's created that they're untouchable. And what happens is, the emperor's not wearing clothes, but no one's willing to say it. Right?
Yes, it's so true. So true.
And it's like how we set that up is so important, right? So I'm going to tell a quick story here real quick, but I was in a meeting yesterday. We're looking at bringing something into our organization and I love the person who's going to implement it. And one of our team members has used it for a long time. So are super excited about it. But, the boss and the guy that created this thing got on the sales call, right?
Oh, yeah.
And like the energy completely changed. And at the end of this, he was saying, hey, here's this tool. It's a time management, meeting management, implementation thing, which absolutely needed, so important, right? But at the end of it, it was, hey, red, yellow, green light, these things. There was like 7 things on there. And he's like, oh, by the way, I have 1 minute and I have to get off this call. And so he's going greenlighting everything. And he's like, well, Tracy, what do you think? And I'm sitting here going, you steamrolled this meeting. You wasted an hour of my time. You didn't give me any opportunity to talk. And you're telling me you have to go in a minute and you're greenlighting all these things that goes into a file that this was a great meeting and you want me to buy your product? Yeah. That completely shifts into a different culture than the culture we want to create. And so I tell this story to say it's so incredibly important to know that you're creating your culture by who you're also allowing in to consult with your organization, who your clients are, but also the systems, even though they may be incredibly well-meaning, if it doesn't allow individuals to have a voice and truly be heard in a way that is natural to them, it is going to erode your culture. And so will we end up bringing this tool in? Yes. Will I allow that guy into my organization again? Heck no.
I love that. And I think I would say you get to be in charge of the experience you're contributing to, enhancing, or evaluating. And I do a session with teams around creating Michelin star experiences. My husband and I have a joy calendar. We travel all over the world for joyful experiences. And one of the things that we love to test out Michelin star restaurants, the funny thing is it's not about price. They're actually not graded on price. They're graded on 5 other things. I could tell you all about it. And the funny thing is that oftentimes we'll go into, and I love that my favorite one is, oh, that meeting could have been an email.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're letting that experience or that client or that customer kind of almost tell you how it should be. And I'm like, no, you get to truly design an experience worth having. And if that means like, hey, we want to pivot, use that company, but a different human, maybe that's the case. And the same to be true for our teams. I'm like, if this meeting is not helpful, why are we having it?
Exactly.
Like, we're in charge. And sometimes I think we forget it because, we're in a rut. It's just what we do. We meet every Friday, even if it's worthless and it's not helpful and we don't get anything done. And so I always encourage people to have that. How am I contributing? But also, how am I evaluating my experiences? Because if it's not worth having, then you have the opportunity to enhance or change or not have it.
Absolutely. And here's the deal. Culture is a journey, right? Like there's no destination here.
It's messy.
It is. And every time you bring on a new team member, it changes. And, I've been recording trainings over the last 5 days, so I've got this amazing voice right now. But one of those is, are you creating a culture fit or a culture add? And that's a really important question when you're bringing new folks into your organization, because guess what? To be innovative, you need to have culture ads, but you also need to ensure that you're fitting in with what's needed. It's an and both.
I would agree full-heartedly on that point. Absolutely. And I always say if we add someone that maybe, you do your best to screen, right? Finding the right person, finding the tasks that they like to work on. I always give that person, if I get someone on my team and they're either really great at the job, but aren't really great at loving it, right? Sometimes it's like, yeah, I do the work, but I'm not really a nice human. I always say, do you know you get to choose? Like you get to choose to be an ad, right? To this team. And I will help you choose the thing that makes you shine. And maybe it's not here. And that's okay. I've had a couple of team members that look at me almost with relief.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't love it. And I'm like, let's find what you love. I will help you. And it was really funny because they ended up moving into different roles, but then they were sending me amazing souls who ended up working in my world because they're like, who would actually love this? And they would send that person my way. So it's funny how sometimes giving away someone actually brings you more gifts in the long run.
Oh, it totally does. Because at the end of the day, we want alignment, right? We want to ensure that we are in the right seat with the right team on the right bus with the right driver, right? So
absolutely.
Are we in the right fit for the role? Are we in the right culture for what is going to support us and what our personal values are? And guess what? Those change over time, right? There's seasons of life where you got kiddos and you're nursing and you're doing all these things. That is not the time to be climbing a corporate ladder.
It's so true. It makes me think of, as you think about the things that you value and the experiences that you're having, it would have been 4 or 5 years ago now, we had a house fire due to lightning. And the most interesting thing about that experience was 2 fronts. Number one, from a culture standpoint. So I'm the leader. They all find out at work that I've had a house fire. They know that I'm not coming back for a few days because we're figuring out where we're going to live. And thankfully, everything minor thing. And meanwhile, just as a side note, our family was fine. We got out, but it was a really windy, rainy night. So the fire kind of took off. Thankfully, we didn't see smoke. When we were there, it didn't feel like there was a fire. We just ended up calling the fire department and saying, our electricity is not working quite right. And so what it was really interesting about that is 2 things. For me, from a standpoint of it really became clear that we needed to be closer to family. So we were living about 6 hours away in Milwaukee. We're now back in Des Moines. And it was really interesting how in a moment's time, it became so clear. And I think about as a leader, when you have team members, babies, anniversaries, weddings, divorces, fires, traumatic anything, look for the clarity that they're having because it might actually mean they need to be in a different spot or they might need to engage in a different way. The other thing that I thought was really interesting about the experience was it taught me as a leader, in order to get more, I need to give more. And what I mean by that is they got into my personal life without my permission, right? They knew I had a fire. And the interesting thing about me inadvertently sharing that was then they were sharing things. My grandma had a fire. People were bringing me those travel shampoos, and just all the things that they could think of, this was really helpful when my friend had a fire, or I brought you a blanket because I thought about X. And it was just really fascinating from not only a culture standpoint of me being a leader and sharing something vulnerable, what it did for our team and how it actually brought us together. But also from my point of view, I ended up a few years later, we moved back to Iowa. And I think about how if I would have been more in tune with some of my team members, how powerful that could truly be. So that was long-winded, but I feel like when you said that, I'm like, oh man, I'm right there. I can feel it.
Yeah, I love it. And here's the thing, when we try to compartmentalize things, it never really works, right? Because we take our whole selves to work every single day. And is work really a balance anymore or is it an integration? I don't know that answer yet. However, that's a whole other podcast.
I know. I'm like, how many minutes do we have? So, I think the one thing on that I'll say real quick is before that, I had so many other things to talk to them about, metrics and satisfaction scores and all these things that I just never made time. And it really taught me that at the beginning of a meeting, I could make 30 seconds of time to share what was going on in my life, good or even bad. Like my kid spilled powdered Gatorade in the back of my van on the way here, and now it's going to be sticky forever. I think it's just, it made me laugh there's time. You just got to make time.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So as we start to wrap up here, I'm curious, what is a takeaway you have for executives listening into our conversation today?
Yeah, I would say create a culture blueprint. And what I mean by that is start to map out some of the areas that you're interested in transforming. And then I always say, you've got to be somewhat intentional to fold it in. It cannot be on top of. If we're going to have like an additional meeting to talk about culture, I always want to give the thumbs down and be like, no, it's like, how do you slip it in almost like hidden veggies in a smoothie so that it doesn't feel like it's on top of, it's inside of.
Yeah.
And I would love for, folks to reach out and have more conversation. I feel like I could talk about this all day.
Well, what's that takeaway that you have for our HR listeners, our HR professionals listening in today?
Yeah, I would say, what I'm hearing is burnout. We're all so burnt out, and we are, right? We are absolutely burnt out. I would say meet your people where they are, especially your frontline leaders. I have Joy download on my website. You start small, right? Don't expect to see this huge and fast shift in your people. I just always say give them a little bit of love and figure out how you can do it in bite sizes. That's my biggest takeaway. And then I always say slip in some joy. So are there ways that in 30 seconds, you can create joys on your team? One of my favorite is I had a gentleman on my team that actually took Post-it notes and drew stars on them. And he would give out gold stars to people who were doing amazing things. So it can be quick and fast and easy. And as an HR professional, I think you're in a power seat to really support those leaders, to give them some really quick, fast ideas.
Absolutely.
Start small.
And look, this doesn't have to be expensive. A gold
Right.
Sharpie and a Post-it pad,
I know.
we got that.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Lisa. It is always, always a joy. I really appreciate you. And so for our listeners, please be sure to check the show notes. We'll have all those links for Lisa. And if you have not joined our membership program yet, we do open office hours every Monday at 1:00 Central. One of our core values in our culture is to be fun. So I know HR can sometimes feel icky, but our goal is to make it fun for you. So I hope that you'll join us on our open office hours and our membership program. And we will see you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.